Welcome to episode 47 of the Unstoppable podcast with special guest Ben Simkin.
My name is Dan J. Gregory, and I am committed to hunting down the secrets of business mastery and human performance. My goal for the Unstoppable podcast is to share insights from some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inspiring thought leaders, world-class athletes, and prominent celebrities to help you to become unstoppable in business and life. Each week I'll be bringing you a new interview with an inspiring person and sharing my own results as I pursue the answers to the question, how can I create the ultimate edge in my business, make a significant impact, and live an extraordinary life?
Welcome to episode 47 of the Unstoppable podcast and the fourth and final part of the mega business series that has been running for the past 4 weeks. But Dan, you told us it was going to be a 3-part series, I hear you say. Well, that's right. Over the past 3 episodes, you've learned some incredible business philosophies from some of the leading experts from around the world. But today you learn one of my philosophies. Always over deliver. Yes, I promised 3 great guests, 3 great episodes within this series, but I'm delighted to bring the fireworks to close the now 4-part mega business series with a very, very special guest. Before I tell you about our guest today, let's recap what we've covered so far within the mega business series. So far, you've heard from Darryl Urbanski in part 1 back in episode 41, where you learned the 4-step formula for building a high-level, semi-automated business. In part 2, it was the episode where Justin Brooke made traffic easier for everyone and demystified the science of traffic and conversions. Then in part 3, we were joined by Jody Jealous, where she shared how you can put your funnel together and build your online business within just 21 days. And that brings us to today, part 4. Our guest today is the go-to business growth expert for established businesses who want to dramatically increase their results. Our guest today is Ben Simkin. And as founder of BusinessNet, a leading online marketing firm, Ben and his team provide online marketing and lead generation services and advice to CEOs, entrepreneurs, and marketing professionals. And his company to date has been responsible for close to $1.5 billion. That's $1.5 billion in increased sales for his clients over the past 10 years. During our interview, it did not take me long to establish that Ben is an absolute marketing genius. His results only tell one part of the story. He's battled in the trenches as an entrepreneur for many years, and he's invested heavily into himself and his business to achieve the results that he has for his clients. He's learned from some of the finest minds in business, and he lives by a set of key business philosophies and principles that have enabled him to experience continual growth. In today's episode, you'll have the opportunity to learn some of Ben's key philosophies, and he asks some very, very powerful questions during this show that, when answered for your business, will produce a profound impact upon your results. So do get ready to take some notes during this episode, clear the distractions, and pay full attention as we dive deep into how to squeeze all of the juice from your business to maximize your profits and your impact as an entrepreneur. Within this episode, Ben breaks down the exact principles that he has used with his clients to generate close to $1.5 billion of increased sales. We talk Facebook advertising and why Ben believes that this is the most important advertising platform to master. He shares the exact components of a successful Facebook advert and reveals a proven ad copy formula that you can apply immediately within your marketing campaigns. Introducing Mr. Ben Simkin to knock it out of the park and close our special mega business series. Enjoy the show. Ben, a big welcome to the Unstoppable podcast. I'm really excited about today's session. We were just talking offline how the timing is synchronous in terms of how I'm just about to launch my new program and literally set up my advertising today. So I'm really excited to get into our conversation. So before we kick in, would you mind just introducing yourself to the listeners and saying it in your own words?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, grateful you've invited me to this podcast interview. So a little bit about me. I am from Brisbane, Australia, from down under. I have had quite a long, extensive journey in owning businesses, current business that I own, I founded 11 years ago. It's called BusinessNet. We've generated over $1.55 billion worth of products and services since then, and grown it quite rapidly. That's my biggest business to date. But I've been involved in a lot of other industries to do with IT and finance and other ventures as well. But the biggest thing with running BusinessNet, it's grown quite rapidly over the last 11 years. Wow. And I also run a mastermind as well, where I'll probably get into that a bit later. But that was a real seed project that came about by one of my mentors, Brian Kurtz. Mm. If you don't know who Brian Kurtz is, you should definitely look him up. He's one of the most respected direct response marketing experts on the planet.
Wow.
His advice to me was either find a mastermind to join because you need one to grow, or if you can't find one, create your own. And that's ended up happening. Amazing. I created my own, and it's just grown and grown from there. So, yeah, that's gives a bit of a brief snapshot of what I'm doing.
Awesome. And where did it all get started, Ben? How did you start your entrepreneurial journey?
I started off many, many moons ago. I was a computer programmer in high school, actually. I started doing computer programming, and that kind of sparked my interest in IT. And I actually didn't finish high school. I left quite early. I dropped out of high school. And I was doing jobs for different companies, and actually, I remember just something just sprung to mind. I was about 17 years old, and I was working on the one of the largest stockbroking companies in the country.
Wow!
On this computer system, this one computer cost them $1 million.
Oh my goodness!
And I was a 17-year-old kid. It was called in there to fix this computer. And all the stockbrokers are like, "Do you even know what you're doing?" So I was that nerdy kid running around, fixing computers and things like that. And then one day, somebody said to me, one of the clients, he said to me, you should go out on your own. You should go out on your own, start your own company. And it wasn't until 4 years later of him telling me over and over again, start your own thing, where I got the courage up and I left the job that I was in and I started my own IT company. Had no idea what to do. Didn't have a clue about how to get clients, how to do marketing, sales. I was so green.
Mm.
But I said to myself, if I just work twice as hard than I was before, I'm sure I'll be able to figure this out. I mean, I figured out how to do programming. It's got to be the same kind of thing, right? So that led me on a journey where I would read hundreds and hundreds of books. I was working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Wow.
Until I was working 18 hours a day, 15 to 18 hours a day for 8 years straight.
How many, for how long?
For 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And there came a time where I wasn't feeling good. So I went to the doctor and he said, "Hey, if you keep that up, then you're probably going to die." So that was a big shift for me. And that changed how I operated my business from that day forth as well. So,
and that was before Gary Vaynerchuk came on YouTube telling everyone they've got to work 15 to 8 hours.
There's only so much you can do, but I don't regret doing that because it's got me to where I am today, and I don't have to do that anymore because I've got my other interests and things like that. But if you don't know, if you don't know how to work strategically, you got to put the hours in. You got to learn. It's a learn. You can't get out of it. One of my early mentors said to me, "You got to pay for your education somehow. Whether you go to university or college and spend $200,000, or whether you work your butt off and lose a lot of money by making a lot of mistakes. Either way, you're paying for your education." And so, that's one of the principles that I kind of go by. You've got to put it in, put the time and money in, no matter what, because that's how you get ahead.
So after putting in all that kind of time and it got to that point where it kind of came to a head, what was the kind of major defining moments that enabled you to kind of progress from those 15 to 18-hour days into building a more, I guess, structured, strategic, scalable operation?
It's interesting because at that time, I was also at a crossroads where I had this company. It was an IT company growing quite rapidly. And for me, it ended up being a burden because I had to be there all the time. I had 8 staff, 8 full-time salaried staff, but it ended up just being a thing that I had to just be there all the time. And if I wasn't there, I wasn't running effectively, and it just became a prison for me. And that's when I realized, like, I needed to get out of that. So I ended up selling that company, and because I had another side project I was trying to get off the ground at the time, which was, BusinessNet, which it is today.
Yes.
And, I said to one of my mentors, so I've got this thing on the side, I think there could be quite a lot of potential in it, but I'm not really sure if there is or not. And he said, we just run with it, like sell the company, run with your new idea. And that's that. I started BusinessNet with $1,500 cash, and today it's a multi-million-dollar company. So, it's taken me 11 years to get it to that point, but, taking that leap of faith, just saying to yourself, is what I'm doing right now, the best thing that I should be doing? Is it the highest and best use of my time? Because, you got to cut off. If it's not serving you, you got to cut it off, and you got to take massive action. And that's what I had to do. I had to sell the company. I had to leave the IT company and move on to the next thing.
Wow. It's amazing how, the seed was kind of planted in your head when you were doing the initial tech stuff, and they were challenging you, saying, do you know what you're doing? And then, all this has materialized from that moment where, someone suggested you should go out on your own. I guess that was a key defining moment. What have some of the defining moments been since you started BusinessNet? What have been some of the key moments in that journey?
Yeah, well, BusinessNet started long before Facebook even had advertising at all. And what we were doing mainly was renting email lists from brokers. You could rent a list for, say, 5 or 10 grand, and you could send out an offer to those lists, and that's how you generated leads and sales and sell products. So you'd rent lists, and then you'd rent more lists, and you'd rent more lists, and that's how BusinessNet was the model before Facebook. And then Facebook came along, and I'm like, well, this is just like email marketing but on steroids, because you can get in front of the right people. Like this is just and back then it was really primitive too.
Yes.
But back then I realized how amazing this technology was. I jumped on it straight away from day one, from when it launched. And there was when I got into Facebook marketing, there was no programs, trainers, coaches, masterminds. There was nothing. You had to just figure it out yourself. Nowadays there's like 412 different programs you could do, but back then there was nothing. So, going on that philosophy is you got to pay for education somehow. I just dived in.
Amazing. And
one of the big things was I took on, I think it was my second or my third client for Facebook, and I said, yeah, I promise you, I'll get you these results. I think it was X amount of clients. I'll guarantee you get X amount of clients if we spend, say, 20 grand on advertising on Facebook. And 15 grand comes around, 16 grand, 18 grand, 20 grand comes around. I spent on advertising, which is what he paid me.
Yes.
And we didn't get the result. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Do I, what's my choice? So
yes.
Well, I got to keep going. So I thought, if I can crack this, if I can crack the Facebook code, this could be enormous. So what ended up happening was I spent another 20 grand out of my own pocket, so out of my own money, spent 40 grand in total, and I achieved the result in the end.
Wow.
For the client, and that client stuck with me for many, many years afterwards, and I made a decent profit from that one client alone. But not only that, I cracked the code and was able to capitalize on that knowledge. So, there's a few lessons you can learn from that. Number one, you got to pay for your education somehow. Number two, you should never give up. And number three, if you're going to promise a client something, you got to fulfill it. So no matter what, go the extra mile, do what you have to do. It's not about, it's not always about, and it's not often about, the profit margin. At the end of the day, if you can achieve the result for a client or fulfill the promise of the client, then it's going to pay off in dividends over your lifetime. So there's a lot of things you can learn from those kinds of lessons.
Absolutely. There must have been some kind of what I'd probably describe as a squeaky bum moment when you hit 20k of spending and you haven't quite yet hit the return, and you're thinking, what the heck can I do? What was the kind of, that was a major turning point, but obviously the persistence paid off, and I guess that's probably been a major moment in
directing where your business has gone since that moment. So how did you feel at that time?
I've had a lot of challenges. It hasn't gone smoothly for me with the IT business and other things we've been doing. And it's really been, like I said, I came into the business not even knowing what to do. I knew how to fix a computer and how to write software, but that was to the extent of the business knowledge that I came into running a business with 8 staff.
Yeah.
So everything I learned was just by trial and error, and mostly error. So having a lot of challenges, cash flow issues, people not paying you, there's like any kind of issue that you can even perceive or conceive, I came up against. And I adopted this philosophy of resilience and a do or die mentality. Like you go ahead, you keep going, you don't give up, and you'll be able to overcome that, and you'll be able to take a lesson from that challenge and apply that for the rest of your life. And that was really the whole philosophy the whole time, and that I think has served me very well. And I think if you are in business, you need to adopt that, because anything that you think you're going to go into is going to be 10 times harder than you can even imagine. It's going to cost 10 times as much as you even thought, and it's going to take 10 times as longer than you even thought as well. So if you don't have that tenacity and resilience, and it gets harder, it costs more money, and it takes a lot longer than what you even expected, if you give up, you're never going to get there. So you need to kind of toughen up and realize that you got to do it. Like, don't make giving up an option. Just keep going.
Awesome. And I want to touch on your own personal kind of success philosophy in a moment. And that's a real nugget straight away in terms of that tenacity. The do or die mentality is really, really important. So in terms of the business net business, what's been the proudest moment that you've had since starting that business?
Proudest moment. I've got a lot of proud moments with BusinessNet. I'm just trying to think of one of my best ones. One of the ones that comes to mind right now is I've got a client who's still with me today after 8 years. And, that's another thing just off the track. Most of our clients stay with us forever. Well, even our very, very, very first client we signed with BusinessNet 11 years ago is still with us today.
It's amazing.
That makes me really proud about what we're doing. But one of the other proudest moments is this client we got 8 years ago. They were like, well, we just lost $500,000 in the last year. We're thinking about closing our doors and giving up and closing the company. So I came in through a referral, and I said, you know what, we can make this work. We can do this. And they had to obviously spend a lot of money on engaging me, but they took the leap of faith eventually after a little while, after I think it was 2 months or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they went from zero to in the first year we generated $10 million in sales.
Wow.
Through the marketing and the strategies I've implemented for them in the very first year. And then after that, they've just grown from strength to strength over the last 8 years. So that was one of the cool moments for me to say, well, you can turn anything around if you have the right strategies.
Amazing. And the ripple effect of that is just ginormous. That's an incredible story. That's an incredible story. So Ben, what's the vision for the future now for you?
Vision of the future is to be able to use what I'm doing to create things that are bigger than I am, in terms of not just about supporting me and serving me, but creating things that are going to support and serve and help other people as well. So one of the big things that I've done in the last 2 years, so I went over to overseas a few years ago and met one of my mentors, now Brian Kurtz. Mm-hmm. He's been a massive impact to my life. He's such an amazing person. Very grateful for his mentorship. And one of the things that really hit home for me, he said, you need a support network. You've been doing all this stuff on your own. You haven't had anyone really to bounce ideas off or to grow with. You need to diligently look for a mastermind that's going to work for you. If you can't find one, you need to create one. So I looked, and in my country, Australia, and couldn't find anything that was going to work for me. So I ended up creating my own thing, and it was the success on that. Just the take up rate on that was enormous. And then at the end of the first year, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore or not, because it was never about the money for me. It was more about creating something. And I'm like, well, I don't know, but everyone was messaging me, you're going to keep doing this program? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I probably should do this. So year 2 comes around and it grows and grows even more. And for me, having like amazing people who are so giving, super smart, successful, all amazing people who just want to give back to themselves, to the group and to me and to everyone. And there's no the culture that we have in that group. There's no competition. There's no one-upmanship. There's no tall poppy syndrome. Mm-hmm. It's just an amazing, supportive group, and we're all growing because of that. And I'm so proud to be a part of that group.
Wow! And it was so when you started that was you set up as a paid group, or did you get the people in that you wanted to spend time with? How did that work?
No, it was a paid group from day one.
Awesome.
Very, very high level investment group to attract the right kinds of people, and also obviously get that commitment from people as well. So that's how it all started.
That's a win-win situation. That's amazing. That's amazing. So in terms of some of your own success philosophies, we talked about the power of having a mastermind and the do or die, tenacity, resilience. What are some of the other success principles that you live by as an entrepreneur?
Some of the other principles that I really think about every day. Another one from a mentor of mine, Jay Abraham. He's been very instrumental in my life as well. Just a great person. Very giving, amazing, humble. Like he's the number one, business person on the planet.
Absolutely.
And he just gives and gives. To everyone. So he's just a great person. But one of the things that philosophies he's really honed in and I've really honed in on is highest and best use theory. So for those of you who don't know what highest and best use theory was, it was invented by an economist. I think it was in the 1700s or the 1800s. It was created as an idea, and the highest and best use theory, if you want to apply it to something like real estate, for example, let's just imagine your great-grandmother left you a 3-bedroom cottage, her childhood home that she bought, many moons ago for £10 or $10. But this property ended up, by coincidence, is in the middle of the Las Vegas Strip, right in between 2 massive hotels. Mm. So you got this old rickety 3-bedroom cottage that's kind of falling apart. Now, a 3-bedroom cottage might be worth, say, $200,000 in today's economy. However, the highest and best use of that piece of land or that property would be to build a casino on it, which would be worth many hundreds of millions of dollars. Mm. So you wouldn't sell that for $200,000. You'd be selling that for like $400 or $500 million.
Wow. So
highest and best use theory is make sure you're getting the highest and best use out of whatever asset that you have. And in terms of a business owner or entrepreneur, the only real thing that they have is their time. So ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time? And most of the time, it's probably going to be, the answer is going to be probably no. But what am I doing right now in my job right now, in my business? Am I doing something that could be delegated? Am I selling the right product or service? Do I have the right business model? Could I be selling my product or service for a lot more profit margin? Could I be serving my clients a lot better in a better holistic way that's going to benefit them and their staff and their children and their families? Can I serve my family, my staff and their families a lot better than what I am right now? So like just totally drilling down on everything that I'm doing. Is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time? Am I selling that $500 million property for $200,000 as the kind of analogy? And I ask that question every single day of my life. And, you can cut away a lot of stuff. Even when you're thinking about it every day, you're always adjusting that. And that's one of the biggest things that's really catapulted my success.
That's huge. I mean, I recorded an episode last week called How to Create Success with More Ease, and that was a big part of it. It was just a case of taking a stock of everything I'm working on, everything that's in my schedule, and thinking, does this need to be done by me? Does this need to be done at all? Could this be done better by someone else? And just thinking about it kind of lifted a weight off my shoulders, because I can see a different path.
That's it.
Yeah, so that's a great principle. Could you give an example of where you've made a specific change as a result of that advice?
Specific example might be something as simple as you'd be surprised how many hours you spend checking your email every week. You would probably tally up at least 15 hours a week checking your email. Now, that's not highest and best use of your time. So that's on a really, really micro level. But if you think about it from what you provide, what value do you provide to your client right now? Could you be providing more value, and in turn, could you be demanding more of that fraction of that value back in terms of remuneration, in terms of getting paid more, or equity in the company, or some other way? So thinking about what the impact is. If you know that you can impact a client, if you're a coach or a consultant, a marketing person, you can impact a company and add $1 million in revenue to that company. Is it the highest and best use to charge $500 a month for ad management, or should you be looking at a percentage deal on that specific project, for example? So there's a lot of different applications to do with that. Maybe your entire business model needs to be thrown out. Maybe you've got to get out of the business that you're in. Another really interesting thing, a concept by Carlos Diaz, and definitely check him out too. He's an amazing person, amazing thinker. He was the CEO of Adidas for a while, and he says, a lot of business owners are better off actually selling their business and using that money to invest in something else or someone else's business, because the return they're getting from all that capital that's tied up and all that time that's tied up, the percentage of or ROI they're getting is fractional compared to if they pulled that money out and put it in something like Apple or something else.
Yes. That's interesting.
So having to think about that as well.
That's a totally different perspective on how to best use your time. That's unique. Wow. Okay, Ben, so now I want to move into talking about the kind of core conversation here about Facebook marketing. I would like to go kind of high level, broad strokes, and get a grip on what is the success formula when it comes to advertising online using Facebook? Where's the starting point that people need to think about?
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in a second, but just to give Facebook an absolute amazing plug about what they're doing. You've got Google AdWords. I'm not going to bag out Google AdWords, but they've, compared to what Facebook are doing in terms of making advertisers' life so much more amazing and valuable, the technology that they're implementing all the time with their profiling and with their policies on CPM, CPC, CTR, and a lot of other amazing things. I don't have time to go through it, but the stuff that they're doing is going to make your life and my life and everyone's life in advertising a hell of a lot better than it ever has been before. And you're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years a major shift, and it's going to only be beneficial to you versus, some platforms out there can hold an advertiser in contempt, or they can take advantage. There's some websites you can buy advertising on. 30% of the impressions you get are dead impressions, because what it is the websites are auto refreshing on somebody's page, and you're getting charged for 30% of those refreshed impressions when you're not getting unique impressions. So Facebook, on the other hand, are doing everything they can to make advertising more efficient, which means we're going to get better returns, we're going to get better results. So just keep an eye on the technology that they're doing. But in terms of what is the thing that you have to really understand to make Facebook work, it's actually the principle of marketing. that has been there since day one, from thousands of years ago. The principle of marketing is to get successful marketing is to get the right offer in front of the right people. So that is the essence of marketing. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're renting a list, if you're renting a direct mail list from a broker, if you're doing an email campaign, if you're getting the newspaper, the magazine, if you buy a magazine, advertisement, TV, whatever, Facebook, getting that offer, if it's not in front of the right people, then it's not going to work. If you have an amazing offer, it's in the wrong hands, those people are not going to buy it. I'll give a really basic analogy of that. Let's just say you had come up with a offer, or you've come across, you have a shoe store, and you secure this deal where you can buy these amazing $200 running shoes, but you managed to buy them for $8 each. Now you could go ahead and do whatever kind of deal. You could do a 2-for-1 easily and make a lot of profit. So you have this amazing deal and nobody else can compete with you. You got a 2-for-1 deal on $200 pair of shoes. You go down to the old people's home, the aged care facility, and nobody's buying your shoes. It's not the offer that's wrong, but you go down to the running club, you sell out in less than 5 minutes. So thinking about matching that right offer in front of and getting it in front of the right people, that's the essence of marketing. Facebook does that for you. The only thing that you have to do is make sure you have the right offer. So, and that's a process. I've developed a 15-step process to create a compelling offer, irresistible offer, which obviously we're not going to go through today. But if you can get the right offer, Facebook's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Focus a lot of the time on that, and you get amazing results.
Wow. So, in terms of once you've got the offer, then and you've created an offer that's a high converting offer, it's proven, it gets results. How do you then begin to scale that offer using Facebook?
Yeah. So what you always want to do when you approach Facebook is you never want to go all out straight away. We've run campaigns where we've had a client give us $500,000 for Facebook ads, and tell us spend this money in 6 weeks. So you would think that's quite easy to do. It's actually quite challenging.
Yes.
To do. It's very, very difficult to do, not only efficiently but also actually in actuality getting Facebook to take that money from you as well. So you got to think about how to make that work. But the way you start, even if with a campaign like that, we would start the first few days at like $100 or $50 or $200 a day maximum to really hone in on the data and say, well, what's working and what isn't working. On our end, and on Facebook's end, they're actually profiling people for you as well. So they're actually helping you and saying, well, these people are more likely to want to opt into your offer, so we're going to help you find more people like that as well. So they do a lot of that stuff behind the scenes too. And you got to give Facebook the opportunity to profile that by starting really small and honing in on a specific target market. You can hone in on a specific target market, prove that your offer works, prove that you're making ROI on that offer at say $50 a day or $100 a day. Then you can begin to scale it up from there and eventually get up to a point where you can be doing, $5,000 a day or $10,000 a day, and it's working for you really well. So, but then there's a lot of other things you got to think about. But starting off with that, starting small is where you have to start, no matter what kind of campaign you have, and that's comforting for people who don't have a big budget, because some people think, well, you have to have a big budget to get results. You don't. You can start, relatively small. $50 or $100 a day can get you results, and with that money that you've profited from, you can reinvest back into your Facebook advertising. So you could put $100 in, and let's just say you make $500 back in that day. You can reinvest that back into Facebook over and over again.
That's awesome. And when someone's starting out like that and they're looking to get the initial result, what's the most important metrics or measurements they need to pay attention to when they're first kicking off?
Most important metrics, I would say, that you have to really look at in terms of looking at the results is obviously conversions.
Yep.
Am I getting conversions? And if I'm not getting conversions, or if my conversions are costing me a lot more money than I want, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So if I have a target conversion cost of say $50, but it's costing me $150 in the first few days to get a lead or get a sale, you don't want to give up. You don't want to cancel that at that point, because there's room for improvement there. And using that data, you can really hone in on, tweak and optimize that entire sequence, starting with the ad, then how you set up the ad, then the landing pages and the offer and everything else. So there's a real sequence that you go through to really hone in on that. But if you're starting out and it's costing you more money, but you are getting results, you're getting sales, don't give up just yet. Just keep an eye on it every day and keep working on optimizing it. And obviously, maybe get someone to help you look at that as well. So there's people out there who can help with that. But don't give up too early, because it's not working. On the other side of the scale, if you're not getting enough clicks, or if you're not getting enough reach, so reach is where you get people actually seeing the ad. There are other issues that you might want to look at. If you're not getting people clicking on it, it's probably because your ad is not enticing enough, or it's not hitting the right people in the first place. Remembering the running shoe analogy, maybe you have an amazing product, but your targeting might be a little bit off. Maybe your offer isn't that compelling after all. So ask yourself those questions.
In terms of the actual ad itself, what are the most important components? We live in this world where there's lots of different marketing messages being bombarded at us. How does someone get their advert to stand out? What's the most important components of a successful advert?
Most important thing from a marketing point of view, and we'll go through some technicalities later on, but from a marketing point of view, is making sure that when somebody sees that ad, they can say to themselves in 2 seconds, this ad is speaking to me and my problems and my goals. If they can do that, then they will click on it. If they can't instantly say this ad was actually designed for me as a person individually, not as a group, individually for me and my specific need at this specific point in time, then that you're going to get results. Give you a basic analogy. Let's just say that I have really bad shoulder pain. I see an ad that says cure your shoulder pain in 45 minutes or less, or it's free. That ad's for me. So you want to think about how you can make that your target market say, that ad, that's for me. Because if it's not for them, they're not going to click on it.
That's a really good point. And how important are things like images?
Images are important in terms of eye-catching. So you want to have an ad that's going to identify and catch the eye of a target market. However, is not the thing that's going to convert them. So the ad will bring the attention to the image will bring the attention to the ad. The text on the ad will basically will determine whether or not they click on it. Once they read that text, if they say that's not for me, or what the hell is this guy talking about, then they're going to click on it. If it's on point, the messaging is very clear, the offer is compelling, they'll click on it. So the image is not as important as you might think it is. I know some people have said that the image is extremely important, but it is not. It's, to me, on an ad, it's a secondary factor.
So you would say the sales copy itself or the ad copy is the most important variable? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's the deciding. That's the point of decision, to say, yep, I'm going to click on this, or I'm going to keep scrolling.
And from your experience then with the kind of ad copy, is there a formula, or is it dependent on your industry? What's the view on that?
There is certain formulas that I do follow in terms of creating compelling advertisements, and there's several ones. One of the ones that I like to talk about, or use rather, is to talk about what that person's current issue is right now, and then lead on with the fact that they can overcome that issue. So, like I said, if I'm going to target people who have shoulder pain because I have a miracle cure for that, I want to talk about the problem before I talk about the solution. So talk about the issue. Hey, if you have these symptoms, there is a way to overcome them, for example, as a really basic example of what you might say. So you don't want to The other thing is you don't want to be hypey. You don't want to look like something that's not believable as well.
And that's a really good point. I think that the market has changed. I think that if you look at the 90s internet marketing, internet hype, I think everyone's kind of done with that. But when it comes to kind of length of ad, is there a formula there? Or is there any tips you could give in terms of the length of the copy? Because I've seen kind of really long text, kind of long form text in an advert, and sometimes I find myself deeply engaged in reading it. Other times I'll completely blank it. Is there a specific length that works particularly well on an advert?
The length is determined on what you're saying, really. I mean, the longer... Some people say that people don't read long-form copy, and that's completely a fallacy. People will read any length of anything as long as it's relevant and interesting to them. I like to say to people, if you had, let's say you had a gun to your head right now, Dan, and I said, you have to write a book, and if me, Ben, if I don't buy that book, then I will pull the trigger. So what is the book that you have to write to guarantee that you're going to sell it to me?
I mean, that's a tough question. But
the answer?
The answer, if I had a gun to my head, it'd have to be written specifically for you. It would have to be the story that.
It'd be about me. It'd be my biography.
Yes.
It'd be my bio. Because everyone wants to read about themselves. So thinking about that, create the ad, make it about them, make it interesting, and don't make it about you. Because nobody wants to know how you were founded in 1986 and you have three co-partners and you won the award for best practice of the year. Nobody cares. All they care about is them, their current immediate issue, and how you can help them solve it. So think about those principles, and it doesn't matter if it's 10 words or if it's 400 words, it'll work.
That's really interesting. Just recently I was listening to a podcast on Mike Dillard's podcast, Self-Made Man, and he was interviewing one of his early mentors in terms of copywriting, and he was saying, I forget the name of his guest unfortunately, but I'll put it in the show notes, but he was saying that he would actually write effectively a biography on his ideal client so that he felt like he knew them intimately, like he'd walked a day in their shoes. And I thought that's an amazing exercise to go through to get really clear on that end user that you're actually trying to reach with your advert. That's quite depth, but how powerful that could be.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think that's critical to really, really intimately understand your target market. And, if you think about that in context, let's just say that you spent 40 hours doing that, for example, but the payoff was $5 million over the course of the next 10 years. That's worth it, in my opinion.
Pretty good use of time using the J. Abraham analogy.
That's it, exactly.
I've got one more thing I want to touch on in terms of split testing. If you're split testing an ad, what element of the ad or the funnel is most important to split test first?
The two really heavy lifting things that you want to test out in your split test on your landing pages and your funnels is, number one, the headline. The headline is the thing that people click on the page and they say, should I be on this page or is this page not for me? So they're going to click off. So you've got to make the headline not only compelling but also a confirmation that they're in the right place. So that's number one. So you want to play around with articulating that headline as many different ways as you can to see if you can hit home on the right wording, the right messaging, the right flow on that headline. That's the number one thing that I would be testing. The number two thing that I would be testing would be the offer or the call to action. So if it's for a landing page for an ebook, I would be playing around with what that offer is. I'll give you an example. I've run a campaign for an ebook that I've written. My offer was, if you download this ebook and implement any of these strategies from my ebook, if you don't make at least $5,000 extra, I will pay you $500 cash. And that created quite an uplift in conversions. So playing around with the offer is another great way to improve conversions.
Wow, what a powerful big promise you made in there. That's amazing. So Ben, we're coming up to the end of our time together. Is there something that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you when it comes to Facebook advertising, or an additional point you'd like to share that would be really, really valuable?
You've asked some amazing questions, and I don't think that I could add anything there. But just thinking about the philosophy of approaching anything, including Facebook advertising. Learning the principles is critical. Learning the philosophy behind Facebook marketing is critical. Learning why Facebook will treat you a certain ways is critical. And secondly, never giving up. So touching on the first point, thinking about the philosophy and how to approach a lot of people. I'll see on Facebook groups, those free groups I'm in a couple of those free groups, and people are like, oh, Facebook keeps disapproving my ads. Over and over again, and I just keep recreating them, and I don't know why Facebook's just banned me for life. Well, you got to think about that from a philosophical point of view. When you're on Facebook, if you're a user, are you the customer or are you the product?
When you're on Facebook, you're
if you're a user.
If you're a user, you're the customer.
Well, you're a product. So you're a product on Facebook, and what you're a product that you sell to advertisers. So I'm a product that Facebook sells to advertisers for different products and services. And the one thing that Facebook doesn't want to do is they don't want to spoil their product. They don't want their product getting offended, annoyed, harassed, tricked, scammed, spammed, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they want to make sure that when you go to Facebook, it's a happy experience. It's a great experience. You want to keep coming back for more. And if somebody's running an ad that appears like it's scammy or offensive or something like that, they want to avoid that situation, because the product, it's like if you had a convenience store and you had all these different products, the last thing you want is all your products to be spoiled and you got to throw them out because they've overheated, or the fridge broke down and all your milk's got to be thrown out. Essentially we're all the milk bottles inside the Facebook fridge, and they want to preserve us as much as we can. So when you're an advertiser and you approach it and you say, well, I want to respect that. I want to respect the users on Facebook enough that Facebook are going to reward me for that behavior as well. So philosophically thinking about that angle. And obviously the other point is don't give up. Keep learning, keep testing, keep improving.
Wow. So Ben, we're right at time, but I've got 3 quick fire questions to finish our session today. My first question to you is, if you had to start your business all over again, knowing everything that you know now, what would be the first piece of advice that you would give your younger self starting out for the first time?
Number one piece of advice would be to get mentors. Get the right mentors who are going to help you and support you, not only strategically, but emotionally, and that support network that you need, because you can't do it on your own. No matter how smart you are, you still need that emotional and that support network, that somebody's got to have your back. And that's one of the big things that you've got to make sure you get. If you want to be successful, you need a mentor or a mastermind group that's going to support you.
Awesome. And linked to that then, the second question is, what is the most impactful business book that you've ever read?
Most impactful business book that I have ever read, I've got to whittle it down to one book. Probably, I would say Mediocrity to Millions by Jay Abraham.
Cool. Is there a specific reason you selected that one?
It's amazing, fantastic book. It has amazing strategies in it. It's all-encompassing. Highly recommended.
Awesome. And then the final question is, what does it mean to be unstoppable to you?
What does it mean to be unstoppable? It means to be able to own every day, to wake up and own the day, to be in control of your destiny and your outcome and your success. When you're approaching anything in life, think about what it is that you need, and don't make it all about yourself either. Make it all about other people. If you knew that your client would benefit greatly, their life would change by attending your workshop or event or buying your product or service, and that was going to be very impactful, don't take no for an answer. If you know in your heart that this is going to solve something in their lives, do everything in your power to compel them, to tell them to do this thing, to buy the product or service, to attend the event, because you owe it to them. You owe it to them to save their life, to improve their life and everyone around them, their family, their partner, and their staff and their family as well. So be unstoppable in helping people achieve other people's goals, and don't let them say no to you for that. And when it comes to things like generating clients, sales, marketing, advertising, sales, anything, be unstoppable. Don't stop. Keep going.
That's an amazing answer and great advice as well. Well, Ben, I believe you are unstoppable, and I want to thank you for unleashing your greatness on the Unstoppable podcast today. The final thing for us to do is to find out how the listeners today can connect with you and find out more about your work.
Best way to connect with me would be through my fan page, Ben Simkin, and also through my website, businessnet.com.au. So, hit me up on there. We have a lot of great content on there, and you might find something there that might help you. I definitely want to keep in touch. If you want to keep in touch, and hop on the fan page and see what we're up to.
Amazing. Ben, thank you so much for your time today, your great insights. For one, I'm excited to go and set up my Facebook ads today. And I really appreciate you taking the time out today. I know it's the evening where you are. I really value your input and your insights today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks again, Dan.
Well, folks, I hope you were taking notes. The question that is ringing around my ears right now is the question that Ben asks himself every single day. And that is what I am doing right now the highest and best use of my time? Is what I'm doing right now the highest and best use of my time? And regrettably, I know the answer right now is no more often than it is yes. And I've just spent the past 2 days in planning and preparation for the rest of the year. And I'm about to make some radical changes to the way I do business. And this question is going to form a serious part of my daily routine. It's time to get incredibly laser focused on that highest and best use of my personal time. And I encourage you to do the same by asking yourself that question. Now, I'll be sharing the rest of my own takeaways from today's show on Monday, where I return for my solo round. In the next show, I'll be sharing my debrief on today's session and some of my own unstoppable insights to help you to unleash your greatness and build your empire. Then next Thursday, I'm very excited to be bringing you Mandy Morris as we return to normal service. And together, we will take a journey deep into how you can tap into your true potential and experience ultimate self-acceptance. Now, warning, this is going to be a very, very deep episode. And I can guarantee that you will experience some of your own personal breakthroughs during the show. It's that powerful. So please subscribe to the Unstoppable podcast to make sure that you never miss a beat. You're going to want to tune in on Monday and Thursday next week. Do listen back over today as well. Take the notes, answer those questions. You're going to create some seriously profound results in your business. But that's all we have time for this week. I hope you've enjoyed. Until next time, go out there, unleash your greatness, build your empire, make your impact, and live your ultimate life. You are unstoppable.